Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the recap of Stage 4 of the Vuelta a España 2021. Here with Benji, as always, supported by our show partner, Lecole, who produced Performance Cycling Apparel. Again, a stage with no categorised climbs, but it's a sprint stage, but a little bit rolly as well. But yeah, it didn't really matter. There was also people like, oh, maybe the crosswinds. Didn't matter either. It's a pretty straightforward sprint stage. And yeah, there's the uphill finish. There was a little bit of consternation yesterday where Benji and I were looking at the official road book, and I was like, is this for Magnus Cort and Roglic, not Jakobsen and Philipsen? It's saying 1K 6%. And it was not that, that's for sure. There's a little rise at the end, but it was like a 65K an hour run in, and then they hit this last 500 meters. They're going so fast. It's a pure sprinter stage, in my view, at least. But yeah, Benji, classic Vuelta breakaway once again.
Yeah, two riders from Burgos BH, actually, Madrazo and Canal. Madrazo is the guy that won that stage a few years ago ahead of his teammate, Jetsebol. We also had Boo or Bao or whatever you pronounce it like from Oiskeltel also in the breakaway. Gap opened up to like 4 minutes 30, but you know that the sprinting teams are controlling this. So an Alpecin, a Koenig, and an FDJ all have their riders set up at the front, working together to try and close this gap down. And that's basically it for that. Those guys took points, obviously, at the intermediate sprint, but there was also people taking points in the peloton. Seneschal took points and Philipsen. So seems like Jakobsen decided not to sprint in this intermediate sprint, or yeah, it was Philipsen taking points on Jakobsen. 10 extra points, and he had a lead of 10 points by then. And
you know what I think happened?
What happened? Tell me.
I reckon Jakobsen decided he lost the other stage because he went for the intermediate sprint ahead of Aaron Baru, and it took a little bit out of his legs, the 16Ks to the finish the other day. And I reckon he decided, you thought it was going to be a wild conspiracy, Benji. This is actually a rational one.
Yeah.
and I think Jakobsen decided he's going to go for the stage win today and worry about points later, is my view. Because people asked that in the comments, like, Philipsen didn't go for that Aaron Baru sprint, so maybe that made the difference later.
Yeah, basically from that point onwards, it was just the peloton cruising towards a breakaway. Eventually, a peloton including Carapaz with a golden helmet that is twice as dense as Copper catching the breakaway.
Listen, everyone in the comments appears to be some sort of amateur metallurgist, okay, saying, oh, you should know copper's not as heavy as gold. I don't know. I don't invest in gold. Long run yield, not financial advice.
I've got a question for you.
Oh, yeah.
What weighs more, a kilo of gold or a kilo of copper?
Exactly the same, Benji. A kilo. But what about a cubic meter? Is it even cos? Is it even copper? Or is it bronze, Carapaz? Were you saying, is bronze denser than copper? I don't know. All the people that seem to trade fine metals that listen to this podcast and let me know, is a cubic meter of it denser than gold? But yeah, sidetracked once again.
Yeah, that was it basically. And the breakaway was caught, and we were going into the final few kilometers with a peloton that was storming. And you had a bit of a conversation with me just before we started recording here about teams getting to the front and then going back again and going to the front. Now you can run the way.
Well, from what it looks like, you got all the classic trains set up. It looks like a big Tour de France sprint stage with 5 trains all lined up. De Koenig, Phillips, Alpecin Phoenix, FDJ with Genietz there. And I think EF as well were ambitious for Magnus Cort today. And then it gets to like 5Ks, and suddenly it's the GC teams taking over because they're going for the 3K sprint. We have Dylan Van Baarle on advice for Bernal, and Pidcock as well on the left for Bernal in the white jersey. Movistar in the middle, Bahrain trying to move up. And honestly, I reckon I have never been a director sportif, never ridden obviously at that level. It seems to me the act of moving up in a panic is more dangerous than, I don't know, just accepting where you are personally. But then you got Adam Yates the other day, lost time, so maybe not. But the point is, they move up, all the sprinters teams disappear. They'd had Van Sevenot, Knox for De Koenig working, and then they disappear. And then they almost have to start this. Everything they've done in the last 5Ks goes to nothing. What was the point of it? When you've spent riders, and now you just have to move up from the back or the middle all over again. So I don't know, Benji. what would you do differently? Would you do anything differently? Is there a rational explanation for what happened? Is it just Dylan Van Baarle's fresher and they just let them take over and they'll come back at 2Ks? Or would you be like, just wait until 3Ks are done, keep Knox and Van Sevenant fresh, use them to punch through and keep 3 guys left for the train?
Well, honestly, don't know what I would do. I think that a lot of teams just want to be at the front, and sometimes you're not at the front, and sometimes you are. And I think it's more of a consequence of other people going over you and you not being fast enough to respond to be ahead of them that forces you to move back again. Because I'm not sure it's specifically like only sprint trains at that point and then only GC teams at that point. Feels like it's always a bit of a combination. And it's always a combination where certain teams are once again on one side moving up again. So, for example, at 3K today, we have Movistar moving up on the left side of the road, overtaking every single sprint train. And that is when we eventually have a crash as well with Tarame. Is that a consequence of movement like this? Perhaps it's likely, but in the end, yeah, there's always movements in the peloton that could cause a crash, and eventually Tarame was able to finish the stage, but I decided to throw that into this discussion because I didn't know what to respond to your question. So we're going towards the sprint.
Yeah, I got that sprint. I mean, again, it's like all these GC contenders, you're watching through half-closed eyes with, I'm not sure if that was Roglic, one of the Jumbo-Visma riders who Kuss veered into, like nearly, if it was him, nearly went down again. But yeah, going into the finish, again, it was FDJ, bad first sprint stage. Today, completely different story. It was actually Alpecin who weren't so good today going under the Flamme Rouge. They had one lead-out man on front, then Philipsen, then Demar's got 2 guys in front of him. So perfect for him right now. Jakobsen had one man, probably Van Leeuwenhoek, sort of having to close back to Demar's wheel. And on Jakobsen's wheel was Sacha Modelo, I believe, 7 deep. And he's had to move up from 800 to go, trying to move on to then Philipsen's wheel. He gets there. There's a big fight between Van Leeuwenhoek and Philipsen for Demar's wheel. Actually, I was going to be a little critical of it, and I probably still will. I was like, Van Leeuwenhoek had almost the rights to that wheel, and he let Philipsen bully him off it and take that wheel. Didn't really matter in the end. And so it was he sprinting, maybe it was Shiba, I'm not sure, with Jakobsen on his wheel. Mezgets then takes Jakobsen off his own lead-out man's wheel with Matthews there. So Jakobsen just starts surfing wheels pretty much, a little bit deeper in the bunch. And you know who brings up Jakobsen through the chicane with about 500 meters to go? It's this. He cuts the inside following Sacha Modelo, who, instead of leading out Philipsen, cuts to the front, almost starts a reverse lead out sprinting. I think he might have actually been, this might have been a sneak attack. Guarnieri closes it for Demare. Excellent work from him. Excellent lead out. Demare opens up maybe earlier than he needed to. A little bit of panic that maybe Modelo was getting away. Got Philipsen and Jakobsen either side on his wheel, and Demare, this is like, it reminds me of that Paris uphill sprint a lot, Benji, with Sam Bennett, the one Sam Bennett clowned everyone in the hoods on.
Yeah.
Demare opening up maybe earlier than he needed to, giving the lead out to Jakobsen, another big quick-step guy who absolutely just destroys him in the finish, winning easily by, I think, a bike length over Demare, and then caught third. But I was watching that. You were focused on Philipsen. Maybe you're Belgian bias, Benji, but no, jokes aside, what happened to him in this sprint? Because through that chicane, there was a lot of, I don't know, there were people moving up, people getting shut out, everyone trying to fight for Demar's wheel.
Well, it already starts at the moment that you started your sprint explanation with. At 1K to go, you indeed see that the first rider who is ahead of the lead out of Philipsen goes off the front. So he has one rider left with 1K to go. That's an issue. Where are the other riders? Well, that move that Alpecin made at 1K to go to the front caused a tiny gap between Demar's train, Alpecin's train, and the rest of the peloton. And 2 riders from Alpecin were sitting in the wheel of Philipsen going into that moment. So they lost the wheel of Philipsen in that corner. And perhaps the plan was to move up in the next 300 meters with the likes of Modelo and set him ahead of Philipsen, because with one rider, you won't be surviving the final kilometer. And now that costs eventually to Philipsen that he had to move into Demar's wheel slot behind Demare because his lead out was not going to make it for the end of the stage. And Modelo moved up again in the meanwhile, Modelo, if he was in that train in front of Philipsen, then Philipsen would not have to move onto the wheel of Demare on this finish, and he likely would be able to sprint like that. But because he had to move into Demare's wheel, he gets into a situation in the final bend where he gets you've got the inside corner. He's actually 1 meter off the inside corner. And you've got people trying to jump in there. You've got Jordi Meus trying to jump in there. Matthew's on the left side of him. And those two riders cause a bit of a sandwich in which he is what's in between the sandwich?
The filler.
Yeah, the filler. And eventually that pinching caused him to lose all his momentum, and his sprint speed was completely gone going into the final 150 meters. So, yeah, you can't win a sprint like that. Then again, I personally don't think he would have won the sprint.
No,
but
I don't think so.
I can't say it for certain, but I think that it's not worth discussing that what if, because Jakobsen is a very, very, very deserving winner here. And I'm really happy to see him come back from all the stuff he's been through and come back with a Grand Tour victory in his first Grand Tour back. And I can't wait to see him fight on the Champs-Elysees next year.
That's what we said the other day. I think we're in for a good battle at this Vuelta between these guys. Yep. And maybe, FDJ got it right today. Demare a little bit early. I think Demare, I don't know. It's the difference, I think, Benji, between Giro. He's got Peter Sagan in his wheel and he can launch at that time and still win. Yep. Fabio Jakobsen, you can't. It's a different level guy in these bunch sprints.
A better sprinter, simply.
Yeah, so that made the difference. Before we get to the top 10 results and preview tomorrow's stage, mention our show partner, Le Col. There's obviously the LR Vuelta 20. That's all caps LR Vuelta 20, 20% discount code for Le Col kit. But there's also the Le Col custom kit. If you follow them on Instagram, there's you can see that they produced kit for the Team 2024, who recently took on Unbound Gravel in Kansas with their custom designed kit. They do it that's obviously in the US, but a lot of UK teams as well, and they can do that for people all around the world. They've been producing custom kit for sustainably for many years now. Le Col. If you want to check out any of their stuff or use our discount code below for their performance cycling apparel, it's at www.lecol.cc. The final top 10 for this stage: Fabio Jakobsen first, then Demare, Dainese, better result fourth, Matthews fifth, Piet Allegard sixth, and Meus, Trentin, Philipsen, Riccardo Minali. A little bit disappointing for Jon Aberasturi, Benji. I remember one of his guys on card did they shredded put the bunch single file with 4Ks to go. One of the Caja guys. Sepp Van Mark 14th. So who have Israel got here? Have they got Chimolai here, Benji? Surely Chimolai would be quicker than... Is he quicker than Van Mark on this finish? I would take him.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, but I think it's more of a positioning issue because the moment that split up happened, that I mentioned, where Demare's and Alpesen's train was a bit off the front of the peloton by a few meters, that's when a lot of positioning issues started happening. Aramburu was in a complete dogshit position at that point, and I was like, no way in hell he's getting to the front, because he was doing a sprint with 1K to go. Aramburu is the rider that always sprints too early, but with 1K to go, you won't make it today. But all in all the GC riders finished safely in this race, which is a good thing. And next to that, we have Tarame still in the lead because he crashed in the final 3 kilometers. So that's also pretty good for him.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been such a shame. Imagine if he lost the red jersey just because he
3.1K.
Dude, it'd be so sad for him. All right, tomorrow's stage, another sprint stage. It's very Tour de France style first week, in fact, for this year's Vuelta. 185 Ks. This one's pancake flat. We've got an intermediate sprint with 3-2-1 bonuses, 63 Ks to the finish. Maybe now with Jakobsen picking up a win and Philipsen with one. I think I'd expect him to contest that tomorrow to go for the points jersey. And have you looked at the run-in, Benji? Today was the main run-in with 10 Ks to go was super fast, 65 Ks an hour plus, but then there were some bends in the actual last sort of 200 meters. Again, the bend reminded me a lot of stage 3, actually, where the way Demare cut that corner and then Jakobsen stood onto his wheel reminded me a lot of Merlier in stage 3. Okay, tomorrow I'm looking at the overhead. It's literally they're on a highway, straight line the whole time. This stage, Jesus. And then the run-in is a straight line and it gets a little bit bendy into town. We have 110-degree left-hander, a roundabout which they should take relatively quickly, and then a 9-degree roundabout, but then it's a long straight. So this is sort of, Benji would always mention, if there's around about 150 meters to go, Ewan is good, but this is going to be very open again. And who are you picking? I think I got them the wrong way around. I picked Philipsen and for today and Jakobsen for the first stage in the preview. Who have we got for tomorrow, Benji? Sprinters again.
We both had Demare, I think, on this one. And I'm willing to stick with that, even though it might as well be Philipsen or it might as well be Jakobsen on this finish. They're all three very close to each other. And I just trust Demare's lead out for that little bit of the roundabouts in the final 2-3 kilometers. But I don't think it's going to have an insane effect. I think that all three can get to the front and can fight for this stage. And I'll be happy with either three winning, to be honest. I'll be happy with anyone winning, as long as it's a fun race.
Yeah, I'll stick with him, but again, not exactly going to be surprised if Jakobsen or Philipsen win. This is Fabio Jakobsen. I think he's back at top level. Like, he's already this year, since his return, won 2 stages at Tour de Wallonie, which, dot pro, but I thought it was Groeneweggen's already looking very, very sharp. Beat him there, although he might not have been in the group. And then, already...
That's a small detail, mate.
Still counts. Didn't get over the hill. You're going to count it. And then Vuelta, back winning at the Vuelta. I think from Lefebvre's perspective, I wouldn't be extending Cavendish on huge money if money is tight. I mean, to be honest, if you're running like a team, and I was running a team, I'd be like, surely I can get sponsors to chip in for Cavendish, like a fair bit of exposure. But if that's not the case, then I think Lefebvre's master plan is to let Bennett go, and always was, and he's been thinking Jakobsen will go to the Tour next year, and I think he'll be pretty good at the Tour next year.
I agree.
Any other news from this stage, Benji? Any tidbits? Another pretty sleepy one for the most part.
Yeah, I think there's nothing too much to add. I think that we've got a few more transfers that we can go through in a couple of weeks once we've got a few bigger ones coming. Like, for example, once the incoming Aramburu transfer gets officially announced. But for now, there's just not enough to fill an entire podcast. So for now, we'll have to wait a bit, I think.
There is some news with Astana. I guess we haven't mentioned Vino is back. It's very, very unusual what's been happening with Astana. So Vino was ousted. I'm not sure on the orders of who.
Twice this year, and came back twice.
He demoted to the point where he was like fired for a day, then came back in a lower role, and then now he was properly fired. And then he put up some Instagram stories saying, I'll be back. And I was like, when he says he'll be back, he'll be back. And then I think the Kazakh shareholders of the team wanted him back. And so when that was decided, Premier Tech, the Canadian co-sponsor, it seems like, we're out. We're out. And then so they lost a title sponsor. They're continuing next year, according to the press release the other day. There's Jana Seal also there, who was managing. So he was moved to just managing like rider stuff. Now he says, the press release says he's back managing all staff, which was formerly Jana Seal's ambit. So I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, stay tuned. Some power dynamic struggles at Astana, as always, and whether they'll be re-signing guys. Will they re-sign Lushenko? I thought he was going to be out the door if Vino wasn't back there. So
I've got a question for the listeners. Well, in the comment section or with hashtag LRCP, which riders that don't have a contract yet would you sign if you are Vino at Astana right now?
Thomas 1 year.
Okay, that was for the listeners, not for you.
Well, no, because they can't. Now we know that's my idea, so they can't steal it. I got it on public record. Yeah, they try to always trying to one up me. All right, all right, that's enough for today's podcast. If you do like the podcast, make sure to give it a review or a rating on podcast players. Makes a big difference, particularly for us next year. And so, so we know the pod is actually good. If it's not, I mean, it is what it is. If you watch on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There, we're trying to hit 20k subs, in which case we'll do a Q&A again, and we'll see you with the recap of Stage 5 tomorrow. Ciao.